Adventures of Lolo is a puzzle game developed by HAL Laboratories, the same company that brought you Kirby's Adventure.
You control Lolo, a little blue puffball, and you must rescue Lala, which is a pink puffball, your girlfriend. This is all told during a really nicely done opening cutscene.
It's a pretty simple game. Basically, you go from floor to floor in this tower with like a maze-like atmosphere, and you have to collect hearts, avoid enemies.
Moving things in just the right way, like there are certain things that can only be moved once or in one direction.
The levels get crazy. There are enemies that make beelines for you. There are Medusas that will kill you immediately if you walk in front of their eyesight, so you have to find ways to block it.
This is one of those games where you can totally doom yourself and you've got to reset the level. I hate that.
There are whole levels with waterways that you have to determine the flow of so that you can make a temporary egg raft and ride around on it. And the game's not short. It has multiple levels, and there is really no boss fight.
HAL will later go on to make Super Smash Brothers.
And Adventures of Lolo 2.
And Super Smash Brothers.
It's a totally different game experience than you've likely ever played before if you haven't played Lolo specifically.
Even though I'm not real big on puzzle games a lot of times, this is one that I thoroughly enjoyed playing even as a kid. So much so that it really stands out in my mind as one of those classic NES games that I still love to this day.
Maxis puts out Simcity, where you simulate a city.
SimCity is a city-building simulation game designed by the legendary Will Wright and released on a slew of computers.
During development, he had more fun creating the cities that had to be blown up than he did actually playing the game. And he thought, well, what if you just did that? What if you just had like this sandbox where you could create a city and it actually acts like a real city?
An addicting game.
Yeah.
You create, you build, and you make your own things, and that's what really got to me as a kid.
And this was sort of a really cool concept that didn't exist before.
You're the mayor of this city, and you're starting with just a piece of land, and that's pretty much it.
But it's almost like you're playing God because you're just looking down at everything you create.
There's so much detail in this game. You can zone land, change the tax rate, and build transportation systems.
You had your commercial, your residential, and your industrial zones, and you simply had to balance the three of them with good roads, infrastructure, and power.
And you know,
Build a power plant, you need to run electrical.
right, you need the electrical for the houses, electrical for the business. There's a fire, you need a fire department, you need the police department.
You had to make sure that you didn't put certain areas close together, could raise crime rates, and make sure you fund education properly, or else you have a stupid city.
You're always gonna have crime no matter what, unless you have a police station like everywhere.
Just the idea of like I got to make my own city, so I tried to like kind of make it look like where I lived. It didn't really work out too well.
But it also let you unleash monsters and volcanoes and earthquakes and tornadoes on your city, just to see what would happen if you were feeling a little, I don't know, sadistic that day.
It's like a kid, I guess, playing with Legos or something, and then you just destroy it.
I played SimCity on the computer, but I mostly remember playing it on the Super Nintendo because the monster was Bowser.
It was hugely influential in games to come, not only within Max's own line of sim games, but things like Civilization and whatnot owe a fairly large debt to games like SimCity.
Games like Minecraft really take a lot of influence from the SimCity and the SimCity franchise. And we all have Will Wright to thank for that.
Arch Rivals.
It's fun, you know, it's simplistic, but it was a fun, you know, basketball game. Definitely not simulation by any means.
No.
So it's a 2-on-2 basketball game, but the thing that makes this game different than all the other basketball games out there, you're encouraged to punch your opponent.
In the arcade, you could do an attack called a flying leap where you would pull down your opponent's pants and they'd just be standing there in their underwear.
It was nice that this was a basketball game that didn't take the sport so seriously. This wasn't like a double dribble. This was a game that had fun with it.
There was also all these obstacles on the floor. There was like candy wrappers and just garbage and cups and stuff just kind of laying around the court from the crowd throwing it in. You could trip over that. So there's all these hazards.
What was really cool about the arcade version is if you had the proper board set with dip switches, you could change the colors of the uniforms, and you could like put your local high school team in there.
This game is basically considered to be the predecessor to everyone's favorite NBA Jam. Ninja Gaiden, or Legend of the Ninja Dragon Sword in Japan, is a really hard side-scrolling action platformer.
Ninja Gaiden was one of the very first games to use animated cutscenes in the way that it did.
In Ninja Gaiden, you play as Ryu Hayabusa. You're a ninja who's got to go to America to avenge his murdered father.
So you slash and hack and slash enemies in this game.
You can actually cling to and jump off of walls, which is awesome.
You thought you were cool if you figured out how to jump up the walls, like ever so slightly, like do the jump and spin to get higher and higher.
You have to be precise on lots of jumps. You know, those stupid eagles will just smash into you on jumps, and that will just, I'm still horrified by that.
For some reason, Ryu can't climb up the end of a ladder. He just sort of freaks out and starts doing this when he reaches the top, and you have to actually jump off the ladder to get to the top.
The music is absolutely fantastic. It has a different song at every level, which is rare for a game like this.
The later levels are severely harder than the entry levels, especially when you get to cliffs you have to jump on.
It's very quick, this game. It's like it's always on the go. You have to keep moving. Enemies will respawn and just beat the hell out of you.
Even though it was hard, the tools were there to keep you going, to make it past your obstacles.
Your primary weapon is a katana, but you would be lost without your secondary weapons, ninja stars and stuff that you throw projectiles.
The enemies that you are up against, especially the larger enemies like Jacquio and all those, really clever, interesting designs, almost like demonic designs.
If you lost to any of the 3 final bosses, you would end up going back to the beginning of Act 6. This was originally a glitch in the game, and it was left in as a feature.
Ninja Gaiden is probably top 5 hardest NES games, basically because of that last level.
And it spawned 2 sequels, which were also insanely difficult, if not, they were harder, probably. Yeah. I mean, God, number 3 is just insane.
2 more sequels on the NES, which would get lesser quality each time, but still fun games. So, yeah, this is a tough game. I don't want to play it.
Some people will do anything to take their favorite video games everywhere they go. But now Tiger gives you all the fun and excitement of your favorite arcade game in the palm of your hand. Games like Jordan vs. Bird. 7 game variations make going one-on-one with your favorite basketball heroes a real matchup of thrills and action. Also coming soon from Tiger, Double Dragon, Gauntlet, Karnov, and Simon's Quest. Tiger LCD video games.
In the late 80s, you started to get a resurgence of LCD games from Tiger Electronics.
The Tiger LCD games were similar to the Game & Watch series in that it had just still frames where they would just light up, and there's a thing here, and now there's a thing here, and now there's a thing here.
Previously, you had the simple ones like baseball, you had football, but by '89, you started getting licenses from video games like Ninja Gaiden and Double Dragon, which I owned as a kid.
I can see especially why parents might pick them up for their kids for a nice little stocking stuffer or something like that.
My parents couldn't afford to get me a Game Boy and a bunch of Game Boy games, but yeah, they could put 20 bucks down for a Double Dragon.
Tiger Electronic Toys. It's just like fun, but smaller. But not as fun as fun, but it's portable.
Tiger would put out dozens and dozens of these up to the late 90s.
They were never as good as the Game & Watches by Nintendo, but they were all right.
But are these actually video games? Should we be discussing these in the video game years?
Video games.
Screw it, we did the LED games back in '77. We're just ending with some sort of, circularity to close this.
John D. presents the Videogame Babes of 1989.
Hi, this is John D. with the Videogame Babes of 1989. The welcome girl from Super Monaco GP. You gotta hand it to the racing games for bringing the babes. The Sultan's daughter from Prince of Persia. The babe you gotta get to quickly. Irene Liu from Ninja Gaiden. The CIA cutscene babe who in later installments dresses a little less conservatively. And Haley, Corey's babe from The Wizard. She knows the trucker's code and she's Jenny Lewis and became a rock star. the trucker's code. Does anybody else find it completely wrong that she has this really close relationship with long-haul truckers? And where are her parents? And those were the Video Game Babes of 1989. We're heading to the 90s, but living in the wild, wild west.